disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Sunday, July 26th. Your readers today are
Dan Arth
and Edwin Vieira. First, a look at the weather forecast for the week. Clouds and sun today with a thunderstorm in the area, partially in the afternoon with a high of 82. Partly cloudy and humid tonight and a low of 66. It'll be mostly cloudy and humid tomorrow to start off the work week with a high of 82 and a low of 68. A shower and thunderstorm coming on Tuesday with a high of 75 and a low of 64, though not as humid while still being warm. Humid with a few showers on Wednesday with a high 75 and a low 61. Partly sunny and a little less humid, but still quite hot on Thursday with a high 78 and a low 62. Sunshine and some clouds to start off the weekend on Friday with a high of 81 and a low 63. And sun through high clouds with a high of 82 and a low 64. Now here's Dan with our first story.
Thanks, Edwin. In our lead story today, new tariff wave is likely to stay and more are expected. Article is by David Lauder and Andrea Shalal. President Trump had no time for lengthy tariff investigations when he returned to office last year, wanting to hammer trading partners right away to wring concessions. What followed was a chaotic start to a trade agenda that was eventually upended by a stinging Supreme Court defeat this year. Now he and his team are moving into a new phase to build a more durable U.S. tariff wall using more traditional and court-tested trade laws, those he had little patience for 18 months ago. His latest global tariff salvo, duties of 10% or 12.5% on 60 countries over alleged weak enforcement of forced labor bans, marks the first of numerous tariff actions to be unveiled in the months ahead. They include probes into excess industrial capacity, alleged intellectual property theft by Vietnam, and national security protections for strategic industries from semiconductors to robotics and industrial machinery. We're at the end of the beginning of the Trump tariff agenda, said Dan Utso, Associate General Counsel at Canadian oil producer Cenovus Energy, who specializes in U.S.-Canada trade. Within the next few weeks, and certainly by the end of summer, we will see large parts of President Trump's trade policy fully in effect. This could bring more clarity and certainty for businesses on Trump's ultimate tariff structure, along with dread in foreign trade ministries that they may have to cough up more concessions to protect access to a $3.4 trillion U.S. import market. Direct replacements. Trump's new anti-forced labor duties imposed under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, the Unfair Trade Practices Statute, used against China during his first term, almost directly replace a global 10% temporary tariff that expired Friday. They cover 99.4% of U.S. imports, the U.S. Trade Representative's office said. This rebuilds part of Trump's signature so-called Liberation Day tariffs of 10 to 50% on nearly every country, which the Supreme Court struck down as illegal under an untested national emergencies law Trump used to impose them. Another part of the baseline tariffs is likely to be rebuilt by another Section 301 investigation into excess industrial capacity, targeting 16 big trading partners, including China, the EU, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, and Vietnam. That ongoing probe targets industrial subsidies and other export-focused policies. Amid a wider uproar over Trump's move, some viewed it as largely maintaining the status quo. Mark Bissell, CEO of Michigan-based vacuum maker Bissell, said the newest tariffs were largely what the company anticipated, and it had not front-loaded inventory from China and elsewhere to try to beat them. Bissell said, "We continued to run the business based on the belief that the tariffs would stay in the 10 to 15% range. Budget impact. Trump's gamble on quick but untested tariffs right out of the gate did four things. It heaped added costs onto retailers and other import-dependent industries. It brought dozens of trading partners to the negotiating table, yielding concessions for lower rates. It prompted swift retaliation and tariff escalation from China that led to a delicate truce. And it filled U.S. fiscal coffers with hundreds of billions of dollars. The Liberation Day tariffs alone yielded $166 billion in revenue, a major offset to a growing federal deficit. But refunds to importers have now turned those collections negative. The 150-day temporary tariffs based on a law meant to quell balance of payments crises have added $31 billion in assessed revenue through July 5th. But if a federal court ruling against them stands, that money too is subject to refund. With U.S. public debt approaching $40 trillion, Josh Lipsky, chair of international economics at the Atlantic Council, said subsequent administrations may become addicted to tariff revenue that is likely to be sustained. The tariff wall is being rebuilt strong, brick by strong brick, and it's very durable, Lipsky said. Trump's broad use of Section 301 in the forced labor case prompted an immediate legal challenge by small businesses, but trade and legal experts say this will take time to play out. The statute has a solid track record in the courts, and judges may be reluctant to enjoin actions aimed at curbing forced labor and lowering barriers to U.S. goods. Over to you, Edwin.
Court reinstates lawsuit challenging Kensington legality. Ruling says coalition raises viable claims about DOT's actions from Mackenzie Schuman and Dan Higgins. An appeals court has reinstated a lawsuit brought by East Side residents that challenges the legality of the Kensington Expressway running through Humboldt Parkway. In a decision released Friday, the Appellate Division, 4th Department in Rochester ruled 4-1. The lawsuit brought by the East Side Parkways Coalition and other residents raises viable claims about whether New York State acted legally when it converted Buffalo Parkland into portions of Route 33 beginning in the 1950s. The ruling reverses part of a March 2025 decision by Erie County Supreme Court Justice Emilio Colacovo, who dismissed the lawsuit. The appeals court reinstated the claims against the New York State Department of Transportation and the state of New York, while leaving intact the decision to dismiss the city of Buffalo from the complaint. The lawsuit contends the construction of the Kensington Expressway in the 1950s and 60s destroyed Frederick Law Olmsted's Humboldt Parkway, severed Buffalo's east side from Delaware Park, and has contributed to decades of air pollution, noise, and adverse health effects. A key issue in the decision centered on a 1947 state law authorizing construction of the highway. The court said the law permitted a highway, quote, along Humboldt Parkway, but did not expressly authorize building it within the parkway itself. According to the judge's decision, within means inside of, while along means adjacent to. Because legislative approval to disrupt parkland known as alienation must be direct and specific according to law, the court said the plaintiff's public trust claim can't be dismissed at this stage. Therefore, the East Side Parkways Coalition had a valid argument the DOT didn't have the express authority to destroy Humboldt Parkway and build the Kensington Expressway in its place, the decision notes. Alan Bozer, an attorney for the East Side Parkways Coalition, called the ruling a recognition that the state's decision to build the expressway remains very much in dispute. We expect soon to be back in the trial court to complete discovery and move toward a judicial remedy for what everyone admits was a mistake, he said in emailed comments. Destroying Humboldt Parkway and its parkland devastated our community. The restoration of Humboldt Parkway will go a long way toward healing the community and making Buffalo a better place to live. Another key argument in the East Side Parkway Coalition's lawsuit was that the state has violated the Green Amendment by maintaining and operating the expressway, which has, quote, led to increased air and noise pollution, higher instances of lung and heart disease, lower life expectancy, and death, the decision stated. The DOT's decision to destroy our parkland and to funnel tens of thousands of vehicles daily through a dense urban area defeated that right, Bozer wrote in his comments to the news. After all, in addition to the beauty of parkland, are the healthful effects that go with providing for urban dwellers to walk under a canopy of forest leaves and have recreational opportunities, which was what our city leaders sought when they hired the world's foremost landscape architect, Frederick Law Olmsted, to design Buffalo's park and parkway system. A spokesperson for the Department of Transportation said the agency was reviewing the decision as of Friday evening. The decision reinstates the Eastside Parkways Coalition complaint in the Erie County Supreme Court, where further arguments will be held. At the same time, the DOT can appeal the appellate court's decision. If it chooses to do so, the case would move to the New York Court of Appeals, the state's highest court.
Okay, now to our next story. Diocese bankruptcy case heads for finish line, but issues remain. After more than 6 years, the Buffalo's Diocese Chapter 11 bankruptcy case finally seems headed for a resolution with a $326 million settlement for child sex abuse victims in place in a case management order approved earlier this month by Chief Judge Carl L. Buckey of U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Western District of New York. The order establishes procedures for parishes and affiliated Catholic entities to file their own rapid prepackaged Chapter 11 cases and become additional debtors in the diocese case. On board with the plan are the diocese, parishes, schools, and other affiliated Catholic entities, more than a dozen insurers in the official committee of unsecured creditors, which represents nearly 900 sex abuse claimants. But one group is not on board. Representatives of Save Our Buffalo Churches, a grassroots organization of Catholics, oppose parish contributions to the settlement and believe the money to pay sex abuse victims should come from other sources. They asked Buckey on Thursday for the right to be heard in court as an interested entity, a motion that provoked spirited opposition from lawyers for the diocese, the parishes, and the creditors committee. Here's another round of questions and answers examining the latest developments in the complex case. Why did Save Our Buffalo Churches file a motion to intervene in the Diocese Chapter 11 case? The group, which has opposed using parish funds toward a settlement previously, had helped several parishioners in their efforts in Erie County State Supreme Court to have a judge block several pastors from making the contributions. Justice John J. Del Monte ruled in that case that court involvement would have infringed upon rights of religious groups to decide their own internal affairs and was forbidden by the U.S. Constitution. In his initial motion in federal court on behalf of Save Our Buffalo Churches, attorney Arthur G. Baumeister Jr. argued that assessments on parishes for helping settle hundreds of claims against the diocese were overly excessive and would financially ruin many of the parishes. He said in court papers that diocese officials needed to heed canon law decrees issued by the Dicastery for Clergy. Mary Pruski, treasurer for Save Our Buffalo Churches, also said in a deposition that the diocese should have sought funds from another source and that its current contribution plan for parishes was an illicit program for multiple reasons. However, in a court hearing on Thursday, Baumeister repeatedly said that Save Our Buffalo Churches was not objecting to the current settlement plan and was not trying to derail it. He also told Buckey they weren't asking him to enforce canon law. Instead, the group was pushing for disclosure of the source of funds for the settlement, which Baumeister said were being obtained illegally under canon law. That information is relevant even if it doesn't affect claimants' vote on the plan, he added. Baumeister also questioned why more wasn't done to get money from the Mother Cabrini Health Foundation to help pay the settlement. Why are the diocese, the parishes, and the creditors committee opposed to Save Our Buffalo Churches being allowed as an interested party in the case? Lawyers are worried that allowing Save Our Buffalo Churches to have a say in the case now will only slow down or derail confirmation of a settlement that's taken years to finalize and will require threading a needle by having all parishes filing for Chapter 11 protection the night prior to a scheduled confirmation. They argued the group has no standing under the federal bankruptcy code, bankruptcy rules, or case law to be heard in this case, and any issues of canon law have no place being considered in a federal bankruptcy court. Their goal is to block the parish funding, said Stephen Donato, an attorney for the diocese. That means they're trying to get in the way of a 6.5-year nonstop negotiation where we finally got to a number to move forward. Baumeister stated, intention of simply wanting to present dicastery for the clergy decisions on parish closures and parish contribution to the court makes no sense, added Ilan Scharf, an attorney for the creditors committee, because the only thing the court can do is strike them from the record and ignore them. And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. And the time is 9:15 a.m. for those listening in the morning and 4:15 p.m. for those in the afternoon. Lawyers for the parishes said representatives of Save Our Buffalo Churches seem to have a fundamental misunderstanding about the reason why parishes must contribute $80 million collectively to the settlement. It is to cover their own potential liability in child sex abuse cases, not simply to help the diocese emerge from its Chapter 11 case. More than 600 Child Victims Act lawsuits named parishes as defendants, so the settlement contributions will effectively buy parishes releases from liability in those cases, which are still pending in state courts, said J. Ford Alasser, a parish attorney. There is certainly nothing wrong with parishes buying their own release, said Alasser. I have never met a parish trustee who doesn't understand the need to not have one lawsuit that could completely wipe out a parish's assets. Alasser also labeled as nonsensical the idea expressed by some Catholics in Western New York that Bishop Michael W. Fisher was bullying parishes into paying an assessment. If not from parishes, where does Save Our Buffalo Churches think money should come from to pay for the settlement? The group has been pushing for funds from the Mother Cabrini Health Foundation, which has $3.6 billion in assets, after being formed in 2018 from the sale of Fidelis Care, a health insurer that was controlled by the bishops of the 8 dioceses in New York State. Those efforts have included drafting state legislation that would allow for the release of $1 billion to pay abuse survivors statewide, as well as 1,800 retired healthcare workers that have pension claims in the Albany Diocese bankruptcy case. No legislature has agreed to sponsor a bill despite lobbying by Save Our Buffalo Churches members and other groups. Is there any possibility of getting settlement from funds from the Mother Cabrini Health Foundation? Not likely, at least according to Scharf and Alasser, who said they tried that route years ago and they were shut down. The people who think we weren't trying to bang on the door of Mother Cabrini, we were. Everyone wanted to bang on the door of Mother Cabrini, and I don't fault Save Our Buffalo parishes at all for taking another try, Elsasser said, in a response to Baumeister's asking why more wasn't done in settlement negotiations to get money from the Cabrini Foundation. But we've already been there. We've already been turned down. Nobody ignored it. Scharf said the committee closely analyzed the Fidelis sale and determined there was no viable avenue to forced recovery there. Then when asked to contribute, the Cabrini Foundation board refused and changed its bylaws to prohibit dioceses in the bankruptcy from asking for money, said Scharf. What did Judge Bucky have to say about whether Save Our Buffalo Churches should be allowed standing as an interested entity? Bucky reserved decision on the Save Our Buffalo Churches motion. The judge repeatedly stated he wasn't going to decide on any canon law questions, and he pressed lawyers for the diocese, creditors committee, and parishes on the lack of financial details in the current draft of a disclosure statement submitted to the court. It doesn't tell me where the money is coming from, dollar by dollar, he said. If it's coming from parishes and the parishes can't give it because of rulings from the Vatican, I'm not going to question that. but how am I going to be able to determine feasibility? Scharf and other attorneys assured the judge much more detailed financial information was forthcoming in future iterations of the disclosure statement, and they will add the canon law issue as a risk factor in the document. The judge said he wanted to stick to the scheduled date of August 26 for a hearing on the disclosure statement. Parishioners will be allowed to address the court at the hearing, he added.
And now on to world news. How India exam scandal sparked an uprising. The prospect of retaking one of India's most competitive exams was so daunting for 19-year-old Sheikh Sana that a day before the test, the pressure became unbearable. Instead of preparing again for the exam, she wrote, quote, "I am sorry," on her sheet of paper and took her own life, her family said. Her death, along with the suicides of other aspiring students who sat for medical college entrance exams only to face retakes after it emerged the test papers had been leaked, has become a focus for thousands of young protesters demanding accountability from Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. On Saturday, Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan resigned over the protests. About 2 months of protests have evolved from demands for action over the leaks into a broader expression of frustration over education, opportunity, and accountability in a country where 65% of the population is under the age of 35. More than 2 million students sat the pen and paper exam known as the National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test, or NEET, in May. After the leak came to light, the government launched an investigation into the test-selling scheme, canceled the release of the results, and ordered a retake in June, forcing candidates back into intense test preparation. Sana's family, as well as the families of 2 other students who took their own lives, attributed their deaths to the voiding of the first exam. The fear killed her, the fear of re-NEET, Sana's father, Sheikh Jafar Hussain, said at New Delhi's Jantar Mantar protest site, where students have been demanding accountability over the government's handling of the affair. The government hasn't commented on the deaths of the exam students. Police officials in Rajasthan, Telangana, and Gujarat said they have registered as suicide the deaths of Sana and 2 other students whose parents Reuters interviewed, and that the cases were still under investigation. They did not comment on the reasons for the deaths, which Reuters was unable to independently confirm. In mid-May, India's Federal Central Bureau of Investigation, or CBI, announced teachers and agents at private tuition centers leaked the exam paper, charging students large sums for access to the questions. The CBI has arrested 13 suspects, including a doctor and several teachers, over the leaks. Modi said in a video message on Thursday he was pained by the paper leaks and promised strict action against those responsible, including by trying them in fast-track courts. "I know paper leaks are not an ordinary issue, and for millions of students and their guardians, this is painful," he said. But it's been a surging movement. This past week, tens of thousands protested in central Delhi, and police used batons and tear gas to disperse crowds. Opposition lawmakers disrupted parliament as they echoed protesters' calls for the resignation of Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. Rahul Gandhi, leader of the main opposition Congress Party, told reporters the exam leaks had gone unpunished and that there had been more than 150 leaks over the last decade. Pradhan and his ministry didn't respond to a request for comment on past leaks. The Cockroach Junta Party, or CJP, a Gen Z-led movement leading the protests in the capital, says 21 students died by suicide in cases it believes were linked to the exam fiasco. Reuters couldn't independently verify the CJP's numbers. The offices of the Prime Minister, Education Minister, and top government spokesperson didn't respond to requests for comment on the protests and student deaths. In a post on Twitter, formerly now X, on Saturday, announcing his resignation, Pradhan said, quote, "I deeply respect the aspirations, feelings, and legitimate expectations of the country's youth." Some political analysts say the unrest, which has spread to other regions of India, presents a challenge for a government that has often described India's youthful population as one of the country's biggest strengths. When young people are on the streets of Delhi protesting against a malfunctioning education system, it acquires much larger significance, said Sabayashi Baisu Ray Chaudhuri, a political science professor at Rabindra Bharati University in Kolkata. However, analysts also say it will be hard to deny Modi's popularity. In his 12 years in office, he's weathered a series of major protest movements, including over a new citizenship law, without lasting electoral damage.
Thanks, Edwin. We'll go from India to China in our next world story. In a first, 2 Chinese scholars win Maths Nobel Prize. Article is by Simone McCarthy. For the first time, 2 Chinese nationals have been awarded the prestigious Fields Medal for Mathematics Achievement, a win hailed across China as a milestone in the country's bid to cement its role as a science and technology powerhouse. Wang Hong and Deng Yu were named Thursday as among 4 laureates of the top prize, which is awarded every 4 years to outstanding mathematicians under 40 by the International Mathematical Union. The 2 other winners this year come from Canada and the United States. China's social media has lit up in celebration of their achievement, with the top 2 trending topics on China's X-like Weibo Friday morning discussing the win in what is often spoken of as the Nobel Prize of Mathematics. State media and other news sites were awash with articles about Wang and Deng and what their success means for the country, even as both pursued their academic careers outside of China after studying at Peking University. This is a landmark achievement for Chinese mathematics, said one comment on social media that received thousands of views. It's the realization of a dream generations of Chinese mathematicians have shared, building China into a mathematical powerhouse. Other posts celebrated Wang's win as a breakthrough for women in STEM fields, with another social media commentator calling it a hard slap in the face to those who have long preached that boys are better at mathematics than girls. Wang, who is now a professor at New York University and the Institut des Hautes Études Scientifiques in France, was awarded for her work resolving a decades-old problem in harmonic analysis in geometric measure theory. Deng, 37, a University of Chicago professor, won for his progress on partial differential equations. The outpouring of pride and excitement is a testament to the importance of academic achievement in China, where top scientists can achieve celebrity status and students annually take one of the most competitive and challenging college entrance exams in the entire world. It also speaks to China's long-standing hunger to rank among the upper echelons of modern science and technology achievement, an ambition that's driven extensive investment from Beijing as it seeks to recruit top talent to its universities and fund groundbreaking work. China's leaders see establishing the country as a dominant force, not just in cutting-edge tech, but also at the frontier of basic and theoretical sciences as part of a so-called national rejuvenation. One commentary in State Media Friday spoke to that, writing that for a long time there has been a stereotype in Western academia. China excels in competitive and applied mathematics, but lacks original breakthroughs in cutting-edge fundamental theories. The emergence of Wang Hong and Deng Yu has finally filled this gap, marking a new standard for Chinese mathematics and effectively breaking down prejudices, it added. China has long grappled with its best and brightest leaving for institutions in the United States or elsewhere, and has been trying to reverse the phenomenon known as brain drain as its own institutions grow in prestige. Both Deng and Wang pursued their advanced studies overseas. Deng transferred from Peking University to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology as an undergraduate and then received his PhD from Princeton in 2015. Wang, a graduate of Peking University, studied her master's degree in France before receiving her PhD from MIT in 2019. French President Emmanuel Macron personally called Wang to congratulate her on her win. Wang credited brilliant colleagues at every stage of her career for her success in comments shared by NYU following the announcement of her award. Moments like this never belong to just one person. They are the culmination of years of chance encounters and unexpected questions that steer you in the right direction, she said. When asked in an interview with Chinese media National Business Daily published Thursday why more young Chinese mathematicians were gaining international renown, Deng attributed this to an accumulation of knowledge and experience. Over to you, Edwin.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time for our morning listeners is 9:30 a.m. For our afternoon listeners, the time is 4:30 p.m. Now on to national news. Super El Nino could offer hope against raging fires. As wildfires rage across Canada and the American West, the announcement from federal forecasters of an El Nino warming is forming thousands of miles away in the tropical Pacific Ocean may offer some regions relief next year, at least. The El Nino climate pattern materializes erratically every 2 to 7 years and can last up to a year. During its tenure, El Nino often brings wetter conditions to the southern United States. While extra rain can bring flooding and landslide risks, it can also keep vegetation moist, lowering the potential for wildfires. Forecasters with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which announced in June that El Nino had arrived, predict this iteration will be very strong, bringing a greater promise of a wet winter. Despite an active El Nino, experts say the southwestern United States likely won't feel its damping effect until next year. A recent study from NOAA researchers found that its El Nino wet fall, winter, and spring seasons often bring a notably milder wildfire season the following summer. Meanwhile, the western U.S. is still suffering the consequences of a hot winter and a meager snowpack, in part thanks to El Nino's polar opposite sister, La Niña, which brought cool ocean water to South America's Pacific coast and drier conditions to the southern U.S. through early 2026. Unfortunately, the helping effect of El Nino in much of the United States won't be felt until sometime next year, said NOAA research meteorologist Andrew Hoel, a study author. With the most recent La Niña just ending, we're still in the crosshairs. Hoel and his colleagues analyzed nearly 4 decades of El Nino and La Niña oscillations in wildfire burn areas to understand how often the fire season mirrors the climate cycle. They found El Nino's helping effect is far from guaranteed. It's an indicator, but no crystal ball. For starters, the group looked at how the climate cycle influences the probability of wildfires burning significantly more land than normal, meaning even if El Nino reduces the odds of an active fire season, it doesn't bring those odds down to zero. The climate cycle is providing us some early prognostics in terms of an outlook better than having nothing, said John Abatz-Gould, a climatology professor at University of California, Merced, who has independently studied the link between wildfires and El Nino. However, from those early outlooks, things can change quite a bit, and things will change quite a bit. So there's less hope for the north, though. While El Nino brings colder and wetter conditions to the southern U.S., it typically generates drier and warmer weather up north. Similarly, while La Niña brings drier and hotter weather in the south, it can create wetter and colder conditions in the northern U.S. El Nino forms when winds blowing over the Pacific from the Americas towards Asia die down, allowing warm tropic water pushed up against Asia to slosh toward the Americas. As that warm blob of ocean water hugs the coast of South America, it heats the air above, causing the pressure to drop. Storms begin to form and a strengthened Pacific jet stream is pulled from Canada down over the southern U.S. That jet stream acts as a giant conveyor belt, bringing storms and rain to the southern U.S., but that El Nino conveyor belt doesn't typically reach northern states. While the conveyor belt helps create a pretty clear link between El Nino and wildfire activity in the southern U.S., the picture up north is hazier. Even though El Nino brings hotter and drier conditions to the north, researchers haven't conclusively found it leads to larger or more frequent fires. While some studies have found that relationship, others, like the most recent NOAA study, found the opposite. But the effect is muddied. The effects of the climate cycle on wildfires are muddied by countless other weather and ecological factors. Take Arizona and New Mexico, for example. The NOAA study found they're often a summertime refuge of decreased wildfire activity following the hot and dry La Niña phase. While pinning down the exact reason why these states buck the trend is difficult, Hoel hypothesized the region's unique summer monsoon rains could alleviate the risk. Abatz-Gould hypothesized the region's link between wildfires and soil moisture could cause the mitigating effects of the preceding El Nino to linger longer. Southern California, meanwhile, might not have to wait as long for relief. There's a chance, experts noted, that this year's El Nino could bring more fall rain, damping the Santa Ana wind's ability to fuel fast-moving fires.
Thanks, Edwin. Our next national story, surge in cases of COVID-19 signaling a summer uptick. Article is by Rongong Lin. COVID-19 is on the upswing in California and across a swath of the West and the South, a sign that the virus may be starting its seasonal summer uptick. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates COVID is growing in California, Texas, Florida, Missouri, Alabama, Oregon, Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, and Hawaii. Levels of COVID-19 in those states, measured by the share of emergency room visits caused by COVID, still remain very low, the CDC said. Other data points also suggest COVID is rising. COVID-19 activity has been gradually increasing across California based on test positivity trends. Wastewater concentrations are also increasing, according to Grant Boykin, the spokesperson for the California Department of Public Health. For the week that ended July 18th, 3.4% of COVID tests in California came back positive. That's lower than at the same time in the prior 2 years, but it is still an increase from a month ago when the test positivity rate was at 1.15%. According to health officials and experts, it wouldn't be surprising for a summer increase in COVID to begin now. Large numbers of people haven't fallen ill with COVID for quite a while. We're kind of due for more people getting sick, said Dr. Peter Chin Hong. Hopefully that won't happen, but I think that's what we're worried about, said Chin Hong, a UC San Francisco infectious diseases expert. At the moment, however, UC San Francisco is not seeing a lot of COVID cases in its hospitals, he noted. Kaiser is noticing a small increase in COVID cases just in the last 2 weeks, nearly all of them outpatients, said Dr. Elizabeth Hudson, regional physician chief of infectious diseases at Kaiser Permanente Southern California. The COVID test positivity rate in LA County started rising after the 4th of July holiday. According to county data, the rate was 4.28% for the week that ended July 11th, up from 1.52% a week earlier. The next few weeks will tell us if we're going to see another summer of increased COVID activity, Hudson said. The test positivity rate is also increasing in Orange County, with 3% of the COVID tests coming back positive for the week that ended July 11th, up from 1.3% a month ago. In Northern California, wastewater detections and the COVID test positivity rate are up in San Francisco. The city's Department of Public Health said levels of coronavirus in the wastewater in San Jose and Palo Alto are considered high, the Santa Clara County Public Health Department said. Summer increases in COVID-19 activity have occurred yearly since 2020, so it is not unexpected to see more activity at this time, state health officials said. Hospitalization rates remain very low across California, but are expected to rise in the coming weeks. The percentage of emergency department visits and the percentage of deaths attributed to COVID-19 are both lower than levels seen during the same time frame in the last 2 years, according to the State Department of Public Health. State officials continue to recommend that all individuals aged 6 months and older stay up to date on COVID-19 vaccinations. The most recent version of the COVID vaccine came out in September. This is particularly important for higher risk individuals, such as infants and toddlers, pregnant individuals, older persons, and others with risks for serious disease, health officials said. Some groups of people may need multiple doses, and those age 65 plus or immunocompromised need 2 doses 6 months apart. For those who have not received an updated dose or are due for their second dose, vaccination is recommended before the summer wave, the agency said, recommending that those groups get the current 2025-2026 version of the vaccine this summer while waiting for the 2026-2027 version, which will be released in the fall. Worldwide, COVID activity was generally low and stable for the last week of June, according to the World Health Organization, although there was elevated activity or increases in parts of Latin America, Northern Europe, parts of Africa, and Southeast Asia. Health officials in Taiwan reported an increase in COVID activity there and were monitoring increasing viral activity in Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and China, according to the island's Central News Agency. Medical providers in Taiwan were reporting some strain with patients coming in with COVID, as well as seasonal flu. Infections were expected to peak in mid-August, local news outlets reported. And the good news is, Edwin, in New York State, COVID is declining, according to this article. Over to you.
That's a beautiful thing. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time for our morning listeners is 9:40 a.m. For our afternoon listeners, the time is 4:40 p.m. Now on to business news, development particularly. As Gordon retires, Buffalo Land Bank seeks a new leader. 12 years ago, Jocelyn Gordon took over as the inaugural executive director of a new nonprofit public authority that was formed to take vacant properties and put them back to use. Since February 2014, the regional land bank that she has led has acquired 247 properties while returning 137 houses and 81 vacant lots to productive use. The organization has also built 21 affordable homes, with another 66 slated to be completed by December, if not sooner. She secured more than $36.9 million in major funding while generating over $10.1 million in restored property sales through last year, and $2.6 million in property tax revenue for Erie County and local municipalities. Perhaps most importantly, she says, she demonstrated proof of concept for the new entity, the Buffalo and Erie Niagara Land Improvement Corporation, or BENLIC. It's been great, Gordon said. The government often gets a bad rap, and I wanted to show that I could run it like a business, make it efficient, and show that we're building things in a financially prudent manner. Now, though, she says she's ready for a new adventure. I'm tired of the constantly changing dynamics of a board made up of political appointees. So, after 12 years, she's resigning as the first executive director of BENLIC as of August 21st, although she insists she's not retiring. I love the community, and I love community-based work. I think you'll see me doing something like that, said Gordon, age 57, noting her background in urban planning. Nonprofit management agrees with me. I'm leaving this organization with a really strong financial position, and I'll still be here. BENLIC is now seeking a new executive director, collecting applications and resumes through August 1st, with hopes of getting a successor in place before Gordon leaves so that there's time for overlap. The position pays $120,000 to $130,000 a year plus benefits. These past 12 years have been incredibly rewarding, but the time has come for the next generation of leadership for this organization to take over, said Gordon. BENLIC was formed by Erie County and the City of Buffalo under the New York State Land Bank Act and is one of 35 such organizations statewide working to reduce blight, increase affordable housing, and revitalize their communities. The agency works with local governments to acquire, redevelop, and restore vacant, abandoned, and tax-delinquent properties, often buying land owned or previously seized by municipalities and then seeking out new owners to renovate or build housing on them. And it now receives regular funding of about $2 million annually from the New York State Homes and Community Renewal under the Land Bank Initiative Act. When Jocelyn started in 2014, BENLIC was a new organization with virtually no dedicated funding, said BENLIC Board Chair Scott Bielewski. Initially, efforts focused on tackling blight by addressing the many vacant, abandoned, and tax-delinquent, quote, zombie properties that plagued neighborhoods. Over the years, she helped build the land bank from the ground up. The Buffalo native had spent 19 years working for a Canadian urban planning and landscape consulting firm called Peter J. Smith & Company, traveling all over North America and the Middle East. But she wanted to do something that would have more local impact. So she got an MBA in nonprofit management from Canisius University and landed the job 2 months after graduating. During her tenure, BENLIC has sold off 220 properties that it purchased while rehabbing 86. It sold 50 dilapidated homes to new owners who made repairs and improvements on their own, under BENLIC supervision, with a short-term lien through its vacant-to-value program, generating $5.3 million in private investment. Other parcels were sold to neighbors to merge with their own properties, and the formerly vacant properties that were not paying taxes before are now returning $580,000 annually in property taxes.
Thanks, Edwin. And our next business story, we're going to find out America's favorite investment. Article is by Daniel DeVisa. Financial experts routinely pick the stock market as the best investment choice for long-term gains. In the 40 years through 2025, Fidelity reports the S&P 500 has delivered an average annual return of 11.5% per year. And yet, when Gallup asks Americans every year to name the best long-term investment in periodic polls, stocks never come out on top. In this year's poll, when respondents were asked to choose among 6 best long-term investments, the top answer by a wide margin was real estate. Here's the breakdown. Real estate, 38%. Stocks and mutual funds, 20%. Gold, 18%. Savings accounts, CDs, 12%. Bonds, 4%. Cryptocurrency, 2%. Gallup has asked the same question more or less every year since 2007. Real estate led the survey every year since 2013. Before 2013, however, investors gave very different answers when savings accounts were number 1. In 2008, as the Great Recession descended, Americans picked the humble savings account and the certificate of deposit as their favorite long-term investment in Gallup polls. Neither stocks nor homes looked like very safe investments in 2008. The S&P 500 lost nearly 40% of its value that year as the housing market also collapsed. During the Great Recession, nothing was performing well, and that's why savings accounts won, said Matt Franco, a certified financial planner at The Motley Fool. In 2011, Gallup added gold to the survey as an investment choice. Gold won the best investment contest in that year and in the next year. A love-hate relationship with stocks. Investment experts say the survey results prove more than anything that American investors don't entirely trust the stock market. Investors had a very poor experience in stocks in the 2007 to 2009 period, said Christine Benz, Director of Personal Finance and Retirement Planning at Morningstar. It is difficult to like stocks at times. More recently, experts say the Gallup survey illustrates America's love for homes. Compared with mercurial stocks, real estate feels like a stable investment. Home prices dropped dramatically in the Great Recession, but that dip was an anomaly. During the past several decades, home prices have trended mostly higher. Real estate has historically gone up almost every year, Frankel said. There are very few times in history when real estate has gone backwards. What's the best long-term investment then? When it comes to long-term investments, safer doesn't always mean better. If there is a correct answer to the Gallup poll question, according to Frankel, Benz, and other investment experts, it is stocks. During the past 30 years, stock prices rose at 4 times the pace of home prices, according to a Motley Fool analysis. The best long-term investment, without question, is the stock market, said Caleb Silver, editor-in-chief of Investopedia. Over to you.
As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That number again being 716-821-5555. James List Aberle, Robert K. Bumpsick, Wayne Braun, Joan Cialfi Nieweisser, Susan M. Clark, Edward J. D'Agostino, Jr., Leonard Darlak, Jr., David J. Egan, Norman Edler, Dr. Marilyn J. Fiegel, John T. Federo, Thomas R. Fox, Lawrence Larry A. Gillette, Dennis V. Hannon, E. Janice Hess, Nee Lane, Carolyn M. Carey Horsley, Nee Carroll, Sherilyn Huard, Robert E. Huck, Jacqueline A. Jensen Reese, Ann Judelson, Patricia A. Cursitis, Nee Ehrman, Rudolph Critchett. Linda Grace Krzyzewski, nee Martone. Virginia Kurtzman, nee Marks. Dr. Thomas John Langen, Sr. William P. Bill Larkin. Billy D. Lee. Mary Elizabeth Lickfeld, Flood. Reuben Lucas Jr. Dr. Michael J. Lynch. Bonnie L. Bonbon Marzolf, nee Newell. Elaine Wanda Matala, nee Asgler. Gerald T. Mezhekiewicz, Jr. Doris Doty Meyer. Sharon Ann Mills. John Jack M. Nafke. James J. Novak. Mary Ann Novak. Richard J. Parker. Phyllis R. Perry, nee Potter. Dennis J. Pietkowski. Moira Ann Restall. Neil P. Ritz. Ruth Scott Waldron. Alan L. Seifert. Paul L. Thomas. Leocodia Vyadova, nee Klejunik. Carl Chapin Williams, Jr. Elaine R. Young, nee Miller. Helen T. Zito, nee Zubinski. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That number again being 716-821-5555.
Thanks, Edwin. And on to horoscopes. Happy birthday, Sunday, July 26, 2026. You are positive, energetic, and passionately committed. You work hard to achieve your goals. This is a year of teaching and learning. The stars show the kind of day you will have. 5 stars is a dynamic day. 4 stars, that's a positive day. 3 stars, average day. 2 stars, so-so. And a 1-star day, that's going to be a difficult day. So for those born March 21st to April 19th, Aries, it's a 3-star day. Today, you shouldn't second guess anything, especially instructions or orders from authority figures, bosses, parents, teachers, VIPs, and even the police. Tonight, your high V's. Taurus, April 20th to May 20th. That's a 4-star day. Steer clear of controversial issues related to politics, religion, and racial issues because an element of confusion and misunderstanding is rampant today. It's easy to kid yourself. Tonight, explore. Gemini, those born May 21st to June 20th. That's a 3-star day. Postpone important financial decisions for another day. When it comes to anything related to shared property, banking details, inheritances, taxes, or debt, your thinking is too fuzzy. Tonight, check your finances. Cancer, those born June 21st to July 22nd. It's a 4-star day. This is a tricky day to talk to partners, spouses, and close friends. Be aware that there is an element today that leads to distortions of people's views as well as subconscious feelings of distrust. Tonight, cooperate. Leo, those born July 23rd to August 22nd. That's a 3-star day. Avoid controversial discussions about politics, religion, and racial issues, especially if they're related to your job or your health. This is a poor day to embark on any new course of action. Tonight, work. Virgo, August 23rd to September 22nd. That's a 3-star day. It's easy to kid yourself today or suffer from confusion related to romance. You might fall into a dreamy state of mind that focuses on hopes that are unsubstantiated in reality. Tonight, play. Libra, those born September 23rd to October 22nd. Be careful talking to parents and family members today because you might not have all the facts or you might not appreciate what's happening. Subconscious influences could distort your views. Tonight, relax. Scorpio, those born October 23rd to November 21st, 4-star day. Don't jump to conclusions today because things might not be as they appear. Something going on in your daily environment might be misunderstood. Tonight, discussions. Sagittarius, those born November 22nd to December 21st. That's a 3-star day. Because fuzzy thinking is rampant today, this is a poor day for expensive purchases or important financial decisions. Save your money. Tonight, check your finances. Capricorn, those born December 22nd to January 19th. It's a 4-star day. Areas where you might feel confused could relate to home and family. Be smart and postpone important decisions. Just ride this one out. Tonight, you are strong. Aquarius, those born January 20th to February 18th. Be careful because today is tricky. It's easy to have subconscious influences that you're not aware of that will distort your views about something. This means you might not be able to trust your decision-making process. Tonight, privacy. And finally, Pisces, those born February 19th to March 20th. It's a 4-star day. You might feel disappointed by a friend today, or perhaps a group. The question you have to ask yourself is, how realistic were your expectations? And tonight, it's all about friendships.
All right. Well, for now, today in history, for Sunday, July 26th, in 1775, the Post Office Department predecessor of the U.S. Postal Service was established by the Second Continental Congress, which appointed Benjamin Franklin as its first Postmaster General. In 1847, Liberia proclaimed its independence from the U.S., making it the first democratic republic in Africa. In 1908, the FBI was established. In 1941, President Franklin Roosevelt moved to freeze all Japanese assets in the U.S. and cut off Japan's access to the country's oil in response to Japan's invasion of French Indochina. The move, among others, precipitated Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. In 1947, President Harry S. Truman signed the National Security Act of 1947. Among its accomplishments were the creation of the National Security Council, Central Intelligence Agency, the U.S. Air Force, and the agency that would become the Department of Defense. In 1948, military segregation in the U.S. Armed Forces was abolished by Harry Truman when he signed Executive Order 9981. In 1956, the Suez Canal was seized by Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser, who nationalized it. And in 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed the pivotal Americans with Disabilities Act.
And you're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for July 26th on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service, and we will return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Edwin Vieira
and Dan Arth.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Edwin Vieira.
And myself, Dan Arth. And we're going to move over to local news. Appeals court grants new trial for Tonawanda mother convicted of killing newborn. Article is by Aaron Bessiker. A town of Tonawanda mother convicted of murdering her newborn son has won a new trial after a state appeals court overturned her conviction Friday, ruling that jurors improperly heard testimony protected by physician-patient privilege. The Appellate Division 4th Department issued a decision Friday vacating Andy R. Wright's second-degree murder conviction. If prosecutors opt to retry the case, it would be Wright's third trial over the death of her infant son, whose body was found in a garbage can in Wright's house. The first ended in a mistrial in 2023 before Wright was convicted at a second trial in 2024. A 5-judge panel agreed with Wright's attorneys from the Legal Aid Bureau of Buffalo, ruling some testimony from a doctor and nurse at her trial should not have been permitted because it was protected by physician-patient privilege. The testimony concerned the observations of the doctor and nurse while treating Wright at a hospital in October 2020. In October 2020, the night police found the newborn in a basement garbage can at her home. The Appellate Division ruled that then acting Erie County Judge Andrew Lotempio erred by allowing the jury to hear that testimony under an established exception to the privilege known as the Tarasoff exception. The Tarasoff exception authorized the treating physician and nurse to disclose privileged information about the defendant to police because the baby's life may have been in jeopardy and time was of the essence, the court ruled. The exception did not, however, authorize the physician and nurse to testify at trial some 4 years later about the privileged information. According to the ruling, the testimony the jury should not have heard included Wright's statement that she put the baby in the trash, that when asked whether she delivered a baby, she told them something came out of me, that Wright had a distended abdomen, her placenta did not look abnormal, and her umbilical cord was larger than it would be for a miscarriage. Attorneys argued their positions before the appeals court in March. Wright, 34, has been serving an 18-year to life prison sentence since October 2024 after a jury convicted her in the death of baby boy Wright. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. During that second trial, a former boyfriend of Wright's and his sister testified Wright hid a pregnancy in 2012, something prosecutors said Wright also did with her pregnancy in 2020. Wright has now gone through 2 trials. The first trial resulted in a December 2023 mistrial. The second resulted in her conviction in June 2024. Prosecutors told the jury at both trials that Wright bashed the newborn's head at least twice after delivering the baby, which she had carried through 37 or 38 weeks of pregnancy at home alone. The Appellate Division rejected some of Wright's attorney's other arguments, including that her second trial should have been barred by double jeopardy. The panel also rejected Wright's attorney's contention that the evidence at her second trial was not enough to convict her. Wright is currently being housed in Bedford Hills Correctional Facility in Westchester County. Before her appeal was granted, she would not have been eligible for parole until 2042, according to the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. Edwin.
County plans new sidewalks near stadium to boost safety. For more than 50 years, die-hard Buffalo Bills fans have flocked to the Orchard Park Stadium on game days, trudging through yards, climbing over snowbanks, and braving public streets. Despite a yearning among Bills fans for safer pedestrian access to the stadium, the push for sidewalks along major roadways and side streets near the stadium has gone nowhere. Until now, that is. Erie County is planning new sidewalks along major roads surrounding the new stadium, with construction possible as soon as next year. Prior to the new stadium construction, neither the Bills nor Erie County wanted to bear the high cost of installation or the negotiating burden of gaining public sidewalks access from private property owners. Affected homeowners weren't interested in giving up a strip of their front yards for sidewalks they would be expected to keep clear. And the county wasn't interested in shouldering the maintenance costs or breaking with its long-standing policy to refuse to construct any sidewalks along the 1,100 miles of road the county owns and maintains. There was no commitment in the new stadium deal to put any sidewalks in either. But a couple of months ago, Erie County Legislature Minority Leader John Mills said he learned stadium stakeholders had begun seriously exploring the possibility of adding sidewalks to the major roadways surrounding the new Highmark Stadium campus. I was shocked, said Mills, the Republican legislator who lives and works in Orchard Park and has been pushing for pedestrian sidewalks for years. During the Public Works mid-year budget hearings this week, Public Works Commissioner William Geary confirmed the early planning stages to add sidewalks have begun. It's all part of a plan in concert with the state and the bills to expand pedestrian safety. Putting sidewalks in around surrounding streets that feed pedestrian bills traffic, particularly along county-owned Abbott Road where the main stadium entrance is, would still be an expensive proposition. Roughly, right now, I'm thinking it's probably going to be the $4 to $5 million range, Geary said. But because the county set aside $250 million in interest-bearing accounts to cover its portion of new stadium construction costs, the county earned more than $5 million in interest revenue that could be put toward a pedestrian safety plan that would include sidewalks. Having that funding source makes all the difference in the county's attitude toward installing off-street walking paths for the thousands of fans who walk to and from games from off-street parking lots. It's about $1 million a mile for a sidewalk, he told the Buffalo News after the hearing. That doesn't include whatever costs the county might have to bear to negotiate right-of-way access on private property owners' front yards, he said. Affected roads would not only include Abbott Road, but also Big Tree Road and even part of California Road to the rear of the stadium property. Right now, the county, state, and bills are considering a high-level look at what enhanced pedestrian safety movements might entail and what type of capacity the new sidewalks could handle, Geary said. Given the heavy lift of high cost in installing sidewalks, none of this would be in place for the upcoming season, but Geary said he is hopeful some construction would be done in time for the following season. Big Tree Road is slated for improvements as part of the repaving federal aid project for the 2030 fiscal year, he said. But since Abbott Road is owned by the county, work on improving pedestrian safety along that street could move much faster, he said. My goal would be to be doing it at this time next year. Construction contract, he said. Mills noted that a number of other homes and properties around the stadium are also up for sale, presenting more opportunities to develop a more coordinated pedestrian plan. He also said both Geary and Sheriff John Garcia agree with the need for improved pedestrian access to the new stadium, but as the bill season gets underway, the need for safer pedestrian passage will become obvious, he added. Everything's behind the curtain right now, Mills said. Once we get the first preseason game under our belts in the first game, and we have a better idea of how dysfunctional some of the things are going to happen. The push to improve pedestrian access and a broader rethink of area redevelopment surrounding the stadium has been a hot topic among government and community leaders, as well as the bills. Evolving conversations have been ongoing regarding how to improve safety, traffic flow, parking, and adjacent economic development, while also weighing local resident expectations and quality of life concerns. The town of Orchard Park gained a $120,000 federal grant to help develop a plan to improve pedestrian, bicycle, and motorist safety around Highmark Stadium. The grant will be used by the town to develop a plan to assess existing conditions and recommend targeted infrastructure improvements. This could include wider sidewalks, upgraded curb ramps, and enhanced crosswalks, with an emphasis on reducing fatal and serious injury crashes. The towns of Orchard Park and Hamburg are also working on mixed-use zoning plans nearby.
Thanks, Edwin. Our next local story, Parkinson's patients lament Univera plan to cut boxing therapy. Article is by Dan Herbeck. Linda Kozlowski, 68, Carrie Beaver, 75, and Carl Patterson, 69, are all Parkinson's patients who live in Western New York. They all believe that their battle with the illness has been helped tremendously by twice a week non-contact boxing therapy sessions. They enjoy their time at Parkinson's Boxing in the town of Tonawanda, where they work on strength, balance, mental focus, and other issues. But all three were distressed to learn recently that their health insurance provider, Univera Healthcare, has decided that it will stop offering coverage for boxing therapy for Parkinson's. Adding to their consternation, the insurance company declined to give any reason for the change. I absolutely love going to the boxing center. I've been there for 5 years. It absolutely helps me, said Kozlowski, a retired supermarket employee who lives in Amherst. I can't believe Univera would back out of coverage that brings happiness and hope to so many people with Parkinson's. Beaver and Kozlowski said they currently pay a minimal copay for each of their 50-minute therapy sessions. They said they were told by the boxing center that it will cost $60 per session or $480 a month after January 1st when Univera ends its coverage of the program. Patterson said he recently switched over to Univera from another health insurance provider, only to find out that Univera would not cover his boxing therapy. Univera, part of a massive family of companies called Lifetime Health Companies, is one of the region's largest suppliers of health insurance. In response to questions from the Buffalo News, Univera spokeswoman Kimberly Hickok sent a statement confirming the company's plan to drop coverage of Parkinson's boxing therapy, but the company declined to give its reasons. Univera Healthcare previously collaborated with the Parkinson's Boxing Gym to explore new ways to support a group of Medicare Advantage members living with Parkinson's disease. With the collaboration approaching its conclusion, Univera Healthcare has made the difficult decision to not continue its relationships with the Parkinson's Boxing Gym. The statement reads, "We understand that members and their families may be disappointed by this change and appreciate how meaningful these experiences have been to those who participate. Any members who have any specific questions about this change should contact our customer care team at 1-877-883-9577. We remain committed to helping members access programs, services, and resources that support their health and well-being. We are grateful to the Parkinson's Boxing Gym community for its partnership and for the impact the program has had on participants." End of quote. Univera would not answer any follow-up questions from the news about its collaboration with Parkinson's Boxing or its reasons for ending the collaboration. Officials of the company, which operates gyms in Tonawanda and Hamburg, told the news they could not discuss the situation, citing legal restrictions on what they can say publicly about an insurer. While the three boxing center clients who spoke to the news said they are aware of other insurers that still cover the program, managers of the boxing center declined to speak about its other insurers. Experts say, keep moving. Parkinson's is an incurable disease that inhibits the body's ability to control its movements. About 1.2 million in the U.S. have the disease. Health experts advise patients to walk, swim, exercise, and engage in habits that keep them moving. The therapy helps me a lot, and I've seen it help a lot of others, including people a lot older than me, said Patterson, an Akron retiree who worked for 50 years at the Perry's Ice Cream Company. "For me, hitting a boxing bag is just one part of the therapy. We do all kinds of exercises that help us with balance, strength, and movement." Kozlowski said she was shuffling her left foot when she began working out at the boxing gym 5 years ago. She said one of the many exercises she does is to multitask by walking on a pattern of blue dots on the floor while clapping her hands. "Now the shuffle is gone and my balance and strength are much better," Kozlowski said. "My primary doctor is the one who recommended that I go there. Now I feel like Univera is telling my doctor, you're full of it. She doesn't need this." According to Beaver, when she was diagnosed 18 months ago, her doctor told her, "Your first priority is to keep moving." That's what I get at the boxing gym. Everything we do there is tailored to keep you active and moving," she said. "For me, It's beyond wonderful. It also helps me with my attitude toward Parkinson's, my confidence in myself. She said she was in shock when she spotted a sign in the gym informing clients of Univera's plan to drop coverage.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time for our morning listeners is 10:15 a.m., and for our afternoon listeners, the time is 5:15 p.m. Now on to a feature story. E-bike boom spurs rules and restrictions. Some riders say speed limits insurance requirements go too far. The summer scene at Niawanda Park in the city of Tonawanda has remained largely the same for decades. Kids licking ice cream cones, couples walking hand in hand, geese waddling to the Niagara River, and bicyclists gliding around the crowded bike path, often at high speeds. That last feature could soon change. The Tonawanda Common Council recently lowered the speed limit for cyclists in Niawanda Park to 5 miles per hour and further set broad new regulations on electric bikes and scooters in the city. Some bicyclists and e-bike operators have blasted the rules, which include requiring insurance and limiting where the devices are allowed as too restrictive. I'm pro e-bike, Paul Dolan said at Niawanda Park, where he'd gone to ride his electric bike. 5 miles per hour would be ridiculous, but city leaders say the rules are needed to make trails and roads safer for e-bike operators, cyclists, and pedestrians alike. And the city of Tonawanda isn't alone. North Tonawanda, Clarence, and East Aurora are among other communities that have passed their own restrictions. I think we've got to tackle this a few different ways, North Tonawanda Mayor Austin Tyler said. It's not like one solution to it, and of course, we don't want to just be writing tickets citing taking people's e-scooters and e-bikes. The rule changes follow a series of high-profile incidents in the area where young operators of electric motorized devices were badly hurt or killed. Used properly, they're an asset. It's just a lot of times when they're used improperly, they can be very dangerous. I mean, some of them go well over 20 miles per hour, said Adam Schupenhauer, a worker at Dick's Bicycle Shop in the city of Tonawanda. They're designed for people over 16 years old. Growing e-bike sales. Electric bicycles provide an assist when a rider pedals or, in some models, activates the throttle, and they've surged in popularity recently. They made up just 1.3% of bicycle sales in this country in 2020, but rose to nearly 5% of sales in 2024, according to the data company Statista, a share projected to surpass 10% in 2028. There are 3 classes of e-bikes. Classes 1 and 2 reach maximum speeds of 20 miles per hour, while Class 3 e-bikes can reach up to 28 miles per hour and have strict limits on their use. Dick's Bicycle Shop, a Tonawanda mainstay since 1965, sells Class 1 and 2 e-bikes, but not e-scooters, which are allowed on the state roads at a maximum speed of 15 miles per hour. The most common e-bike customers at Dick's are people in their late 50s or older. They're also popular with those who can't operate a car, whether for medical or legal reasons. I have a customer named Buzz. He's 91 years old and loves his e-bike because he gets exercise. And like I said, when he gets tired, he has that help, Schupenhauer said. But young riders could get hurt or worse. E-bike and e-scooter riders must be at least 16 years old, but this state law hasn't stopped young people from embracing them and other faster electric vehicles that can move much further. The results can be calamitous. A 15-year-old North Tonawanda High School student was badly hurt in June when he rode an e-scooter into the path of an oncoming sedan which had the right of way. A quick response from emergency personnel is credited with saving his life. Last year, 16-year-old Clarence High School student died after he crashed an electric dirt bike, and a 10-year-old girl was seriously injured when she collided with an SUV in the city of Tonawanda while riding an e-bike. As of last week, there have been 13 e-bike-related admissions to Golisano Children's Hospital of Buffalo this year, compared with 9 in all of 2025, according to Kaleida Health. There were 12 e-scooter-related admissions in 2025 and 6 so far in 2026. With most such injuries happening between June and September, a Kaleida Health representative said the hospital expects this year's numbers to end up doubling or tripling the count for 2025. The kids operating these vehicles, but also the parents, who are often the ones buying them, don't realize how fast they can go and how dangerous they can be for the rider, said Benjamin Casper, injury prevention and outreach specialist at Golisano Children's Hospital. So the safety rules are imposed. East Aurora and Clarence passed new regulations for electric bicycles and scooters last year. In East Aurora, for example, police now can impound the devices and fine the parents of underage e-bike and e-scooter riders. East Aurora Police Chief Patrick Welch said the village has worked to educate riders and their parents about the law, and they've seen good compliance without having to seize any devices. We've actually seen a decrease in the village of East Aurora of kids on e-bikes, Welch said. Electric dirt bikes, which must be registered with the state as a motorcycle, are becoming a new problem in the village, though. They go so fast and make so little noise that Welch said he worries riders will run someone over.
I see those e-bikes and e-scooters everywhere, Edwin. Our next feature story, Quippy Clothing Company finds success on the left. Article is by Jay Stahl, USA Today. When Rochelle Ruska McPherson founded her new clothing company a decade ago, she did not imagine celebrities would be donning her sweaters. McPherson also didn't expect her brand Lingua Franca, which produces hand-stitched cashmere sweaters made by women, to become political. McPherson has sewn her way into an empire with the help of the company's most famous collection, its Give a Damn line, a series of sassy pullovers bearing progressive slogans that throw shade at President Trump's administration. The quippy offerings, styled in lowercase lettering, include Melt Ice, I Like My Ice Crushed, and Impeach Him. In recent years, McPherson's company has grown beyond its political roots. Lingua Franca launched ready-to-wear in 2020. The bulk of the company's sales come from customizable sweaters, but Lingua Franca, founded in September 2016, 2 months before Trump won, has experienced a homecoming as brands reckon with politics during his second term. We've kind of tamped down the politics as we've grown, but obviously this is the 250th year of our country, and I think a lot of things were happening, and so it felt natural. McPherson, 43, said, Oprah Winfrey and Martha Stewart have been photographed in the Give a Damn sweaters, which run from $150 to $380. Born from depression, McPherson, a Nebraska native, moved to New York in 2005 to pursue dreams beyond the prairie. In 2008, McPherson co-founded Guest of a Guest, a popular lifestyle site about the gilded lives of New York's high society. She married hospitality titan Sean McPherson in 2011, and the pair welcomed 2 sons, Maxwell and then Dash Shio. After Dash's 2016 birth, McPherson experienced an extreme bout of postpartum anxiety and depression. I was working nonstop and trying to make sense of the digital landscape when everything was changing and really kind of just sunk into a deep black hole, McPherson said. She went to a therapist and is now medicated with Lexapro, a common antidepressant. To heal, the founder's therapist recommended that she perform manual tasks since she was often online, attached to both her phone and plugged into the constant news cycle. On a visit to Montauk, McPherson passed a Joann fabric store. Her paternal grandmother, Rita, had taught her how to embroider while growing up. She had not stitched in 20 years, but went into the store to purchase needles and thread. Lingua Franca's first line was an apolitical line of 2,000 sweaters sold by Net-a-Porter, the luxury fashion site. McPherson designed a collection inspired by her muse and mother-in-law, Janet McPherson, a pioneer in women's surfing. McPherson, who rode waves into her 80s, dons a Lingua Franca outlaw sweater in the photo that accompanies her New York Times obituary. Inclusivity. After Trump was elected, McPherson took a photo of her ode to Barack Obama on an embroidered sweater and posted the photo to Instagram. It went totally viral, McPherson wrote in a Business Insider essay. The garment was a gift for Anna Carter, who runs a digital telegram company along with her husband, former Vanity Fair editor Graydon Carter. The brand's celebrity fans include Candice Bergen, Jamie Lee Curtis, Katie Couric, Andy Cohen, America Ferrera, Reese Witherspoon, Jane Fonda, Laura Dern, and Lupita Nyong'o. Lingua franca has also triggered high-profile backlash. McPherson drew criticism for the company's anti-ice sweaters. A retailer dropped her brand in the wake of that controversy. But the most outspoken critics of McPherson's lines are disgruntled about the sweater's high cost. In 2018, she told The Hollywood Reporter that the biggest criticism we get is the price point. McPherson recalled her own experience as a Midwesterner adjusting to East Coast prices. When her cousins from Kansas City, Missouri came to visit recently, she took them to Montauk and brought them to the high-end market Round Swamp Farm. The Hamptons hotspot is beloved by culinary icon Ina Garten and hated by Bethany Frankel after the former Real Housewives of New York star said the store didn't give her credit for helping making it famous. The cost of goods is relative, McPherson said, but added that it's important to acknowledge and explain what people are paying for. Over to you, Edwin.
Life-saving experience brings too much follow-up. It's Asking Eric. Dear Eric, a few years ago, I was directly responsible for saving the life of Peter. I did not know him before this event, and soon afterward, he and his family reached out to thank me and to ask to meet me, obviously under better circumstances. I agreed to the meeting, and to be blunt, I regret it completely. Peter is a perfectly decent person, but we just don't have anything in common. But he and several of his family members won't stop calling me, texting me, etc. I'm his hero, which in their eyes seems to translate to being his friend. But honest to God, I do not like him. To be blunt, he annoys me. He's done nothing wrong, he's just not someone who I would choose to be friends with. However, I keep responding due to feeling horrible about it. I've backed off considerably in responding to text messages, hoping they would take a hint, but he and his family haven't. I don't wish to be friends with any of them. I just don't know how to do so without hurting their feelings. Any advice on how to get rid of them? I know I sound horrible and I'm sorry, but I seriously need them to stop bothering me. From Not the Hero. Dear Hero, your core desire to not be drawn into a relationship with people you don't jibe with isn't so horrible. If you hadn't met while saving Peter's life, it would probably be easier to disengage. Some people don't get along, and that's fine. It's possible to have a breakup conversation that's brief, clear, and kind. Tell Peter you're glad you were able to be there for him, but that the ongoing contact has been a little intense. It's fine to say something along the lines of, I'm not in a place to be friends, but I wish you well. This may sting to hear, but it's better to be honest in this way than to carry resentment. What you're doing is communicating what you want, rather than continuing to try to meet his expectations. He may feel the universe brought you together, but the universe did not necessarily bring you together forever. Tell him you're glad to have saved his life, and you wish him nothing but the best for the rest of it. Dear Eric, my husband and I have been married for 10 years. I'm 84, he's 75 now. My vision was to travel a bit and enjoy retirement. 2 years into the marriage, he started falling after many neurologist visits, and many medical tests, was diagnosed with severe neuropathy. He can't walk or drive, and he works out 3 times a week in an effort to maintain what mobility he has. I work daily to keep him motivated and supportive. Nevertheless, I want to travel. I want to be free. I don't know what to do. I'm so frustrated. Do I stay with him or do I leave and go my own way? I feel guilty when I think this way, but this isn't what I signed up for. I don't know what to do. Please help. From Stuck Wife. Dear wife, no one knows what they're signing up for when they begin a relationship, particularly marriage. We're all almost guaranteed to be presented with unexpected challenges. Part of the solution involves accepting what we can't change, but an equal part involves knowing when and how to reach out for help. So, there are other options besides leaving him and staying stuck. First, it's helpful to acknowledge this isn't what he chose. It's a hard situation for both of you, in different ways, of course. It's okay to acknowledge this is not how you saw your life going. Preventing yourself from doing so will just lead to resentment, which poisons the marriage. Next, have a conversation with him about bringing in help that will allow you to travel and refresh yourself. That might look like a home health aide, a friend, a relative, or someone else, depending on the specific needs he has. Ask him about his feelings on the matter. He may well want you to pursue this part of your dream. Traveling involves coming back. It's possible some of the guilt and frustration you're feeling stems from feeling trapped. There are some aspects of his health challenges that are keeping you both from the lives you wanted, but take a lesson from the way he works out regularly to maintain mobility. He can't do exactly what he wants, but he's doing what he can. You can as well, while still maintaining a connection to and caring for someone you love.
And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:30 a.m. for those listening in the morning and 5:30 p.m. for those listening in the afternoon. And Edwin, we're going to move over to sports. Hungarian prospect Doman Songoth continues pursuit of pro hockey with the Buffalo Sabres. Article is by Rachel Lindsay. Doman Songoth had no plans to attend the NHL draft in June in Buffalo. He decided to return to Hungary and spend time with his family in Budapest as he prepared to go to North America ahead of the 2026-2027 season. Then he got a phone call the evening of June 27th. It was a Saturday night about 6 hours ahead of Buffalo, where the call originated. The Buffalo Sabres had just selected Songoth, a 6'1", 195-pound center at number 156 in the 5th round of the NHL draft. He needed to be in Buffalo less than 48 hours later for the start of development camp June 29th at Lacombe Harbor Center. It was like 10 o'clock in the evening when the draft was my pick, Songoth said. I had to go to the airport the next morning around 7 and fly the way to Toronto. Non-stop flights from Budapest, Hungary's capital, to Toronto's Lester B. Pearson Airport are about 9.5 hours in duration, and it is about a 2-hour drive from Pearson Airport to Buffalo. Songoth was on the ice at Harbor Center the morning of June 29th as part of the Sabres development camp. He will be back in North America, too, for the next step in his path to professional hockey. Songoth is a compelling prospect. He is only the 4th Hungarian-born player to be drafted by an NHL team. He relocated from Hungary to Finland to play hockey when he was 15 years old and plans to play for Sault Ste. Marie of the Ontario Hockey League this season. He has played for Hungary in the IIHF World Championships the last 2 years. He's even a poster child of sorts for hockey in Hungary. You can go online and purchase a customized Team Hungary jersey with Songoth's name, number, and sponsor patches. He aims to be the first Hungarian-born player to play in the NHL, but he is not in a rush. He is only 18 years old. There's so little organizational familiarity with hockey in Hungary that when Tim Kennedy, the Sabres' new director of player development, was asked what he knew of Songoth, his answer came with candor. That there's a direct flight from Hungary to Toronto, Kennedy said. From what I've seen of him, just a big kid with good skill that we're very excited to have. Sabres assistant general manager Jerry Fortin gave more insight after the Sabres staff had scouted Songoth, who played in Finland the last 3 seasons. He gets to the inside of the game, Fortin said, gets around the net, and he still takes care of his own end. Natural center qualities, a rarity in sport. Hungary is by no means a hotbed for hockey prospects. Songoth joins Janos Voss, Dallas, number 32 in 2002, Levante Super, Calgary, number 116 in 2000, and Tomas Grasho, Edmonton, number 256 in 1999, as players born in Hungary to be drafted by NHL teams. Songoth said he got messages from all 3 of those players, none of whom played in the NHL. Nice to have you in our group there, and they hope I will be the first to play, Songoth said of his exchanges with the 3 former draft picks. Gergely Majoras, the head coach of the Hungarian men's national team, congratulated Songoth in a statement posted to the Hungarian Ice Hockey Federation's website and social media channels, and expressed hope that Hungary finally would have the first player in its country make his NHL debut. This is also a recognition of the national team program from the youth to the adults. The members of these staffs also contributed to this success, Majra said in the statement's translation. At the same time, we must also think about what we need to do to ensure that such a draft can occur as often as possible in the future. I trust that the changes that have taken place in the past few years, primarily in youth education and coaching, will bring results. I also hope that the next NHL drafted player will not have to wait 24 years, but not even 5. That's what we all need to work on.
How good is Moore? Ask his coaches. DJ Moore is quiet. His friends will tell you that. His coaches will tell you that. His teammates will tell you that. So approach the newly acquired Moore with a request to profile him, and the Buffalo Bills wide receiver has a simple answer. Talk to his coaches. But which coaches for the 29-year-old Moore? Every coach I've ever had. So, where to start? Well, the Buffalo News went back to the beginning. In the early years, Moore grew up in Philadelphia, specifically in the Mount Airy Bantams Youth Association. Kevin Norris remembers when Moore was just 5, a couple of years off from being able to take the field. He wasn't old enough to play, so his mom had bought him one of those play helmets, plastic helmets, Norris said. And he wore it everywhere until he was able to play. He would be at the practices. He would practice with the team, and like he was on it, but wasn't old enough at the time. But he was ready. The Bantams program fostered community. Norris recalls a young Moore spending entire Saturdays there even before he was allowed to play. Finally, his day to take the field came. I think they made an exception some kind of way, Norris said. They let him play early, and he hasn't stopped since. The impact the Bantams had on Moore was significant. In April of 2021, Moore posted on then Twitter, "I'm trying run/own my old youth football team, Mount Airy Bantams." He returns often to visit and stays in touch with past coaches, and Moore found success on the field too. So he came up to the organization. He didn't go nowhere else. He came back. He played for Mount Airy all the way up, said Steve Lynch, who coached Moore at age 13. And so luckily, I won my first championship with DJ. That's my first year I started coaching. Edward Jones first met Moore 3 years before he would coach him, back when Moore was around 7. Moore's reputation had gotten around the program. And he was just doing big things then, Jones said of Moore. He had styled himself as a good player at that point. Norris, Lynch, and Jones all emphasized Moore's humility, even when he was one of the best players on the team. But he would balance that with a little trash talking. Years after Norris coached Moore, Norris was coaching a rival high school and faced Moore, who was at Imhotep Institute Charter High School. His team came out and I was on the sideline, Norris said. And he looked at me, he said, "Coach Kev, I'm about to score right here." And I just laughed it off like, oh well. And he gets the ball and he scores and he ran back and said, "I told you." And I said, "You know, this guy's insane." More than a player though. Andre Noble was the Imhotep athletics director when he met Moore. In high school, Moore had moved from playing any position, even kicker, for which the Bantams needed to now playing wide receiver. It was a move that worked out quite well. Just electric, Noble said of Moore. He was just really, really a special guy with the ball in his hands, and he was really good after the catch. At a high school level, you could tell he was very, very special. Once Moore went off to the University of Maryland, Noble would take his basketball team to visit. Noble recalls Moore giving the students a tour, but also stopping to talk to everyone he passed, from the campus security guard to the janitor. That struck Noble more than anything Moore was doing on the field. He finds value in normal, everyday people and makes them feel like human beings, Noble said. It makes them feel they're just as valued. It's just one of those unique traits he has. From college and beyond, Chris Beatty had a unique perspective on Moore's ascension, having first served as Moore's wide receivers coach at Maryland before later linking back up with Moore in the NFL on the Chicago Bears coaching staff. By that time in the league, Beatty already knew Moore's personality. He was obviously the leader of our team, Beatty said, by far the best player, but also a lot more than that, like he was the best person on the team too. Beatty joined the Maryland staff when Moore was a sophomore, and he had a quick ask of the young Moore. We kind of counted on him, or at least myself counted on him, to run the room from the beginning, and so I remember having conversations with them about, hey, I need you to step up and take charge as a sophomore, Beatty said, and he did a great job of doing that. No one ever questioned it because it was kind of a given. When Moore was drafted by the Carolina Panthers, he and Beatty stayed in touch. We would talk, and you could see the confidence kind of grow, Beatty said, because the league can beat you down if you don't feel like sometimes you belong. And DJ was kind of one of those guys that you sit back and I could see his confidence grow to where he was an all-pro caliber player. And there was no question in his mind that he was. But something was still missing. The crazy thing is, DJ hadn't been part of that many winning teams, Beatty said. I think last year with Chicago was the first one he's been a part of since high school. Ask coaches from any era of Moore's career about how he'll fit in with Buffalo, and there's a consensus. Moore has yet to have quarterback stability, and now playing with Josh Allen should be a major plus. But don't expect the change in caliber of team to change the quiet leader Moore has always been. He hasn't changed his person from 5 years old to where he is now, Norris said. His personality is exactly the same. Like he had the NFL, college, high school, nothing has changed the person he is, which is kind of difficult at this day and age for pro athletes.
Thanks, Edwin. We'll stay with the theme of football, but we'll go over to college football. UB's Lembo approves of 5-for-5 rule. Article by Markel Slaughter. It's beginning to feel a lot like college football season. The University at Buffalo is just about ready to kick off its 2026 campaign. Last week in Detroit, Coach Pete Lembo, running back Terrence Shelton Jr., and defensive lineman Cornell Evans represented the Bulls at the Mid-American Conference Media Day. Now UB semi-patiently waits to report for preseason camp August 3rd, exactly 1 month before the Bulls season opener against the Albany Great Danes. This summer, UB players spent up to 9 weeks working with strength and conditioning coach Ryan Horton and his staff. Players spent 2 hours per week performing football drills and participating in meetings. When the Bulls report, they'll participate in a series of meetings. The following day begins 2 days in helmets before they add shoulder pads. They'll be in full pads by the 6th practice. Then the fun begins. UB has plenty of personnel puzzles to solve, most notably at quarterback, along much of the offensive line, and on defense, a good portion of the front seven. UB will break in a new set of kicking specialists too. UB and the 5-for-5 rule. UB, along with the rest of NCAA Division I, begins camp with what Lembo calls some good news. Beginning this season, the Bulls and everyone else will play under what's commonly referred to as the 5-for-5 rule, a new age-based eligibility model. Student athletes can now play 5 seasons during a 5-year window if they enroll no later than their 19th birthday. For most of the past 6 decades, athletes had just 4 years of eligibility within a 5-year window, which began whenever the athletes enrolled in college. Coaches could use that 5th year for a redshirt, developing the player in practice and keeping him on scholarship while keeping him out of competition. Now the redshirt year is essentially gone, and players are eligible all 5 years once their window begins. At UB, 12 players are impacted. Junior running back Terrence Shelton Jr. and junior safety John Key, for instance, are 2 Bulls who burned the red shirts during Lembo's first season in Buffalo in 2024. Under the new 5-for-5 rule, Shelton and Key are now eligible to play through the 2028 season. Under the previous model, Shelton and Keough would have seen their eligibility conclude following the 2027 campaign. They are examples of 2 of the 12 who will get a year of eligibility back, Lembo said. The rest of the roster is not affected. Depending on our retention after the season, that could impact some of your decision making for the following season, just knowing that you have some additional guys that could be coming back for another year. Under the new model, red shirts and eligibility extension waivers eventually will become obsolete, as season of competition limits are eliminated and athletes are granted a 5th year of eligibility. The red shirt you won't see anymore, Lembo said. You'll just see how many years of eligibility a guy has. And then their goal with the 5-for-5 was to also severely reduce all of these different waivers that you see. Medical waivers, hardship waivers. There were too many situations where one guy got it approved and the next guy did not, and that was causing a lot of strife. Controversy surrounded the 5-for-5 rule following its approval in June. The NCAA has been hit with multiple lawsuits. According to On3.com, former Texas offensive lineman Cole Hudson filed a lawsuit against the NCAA last week with hopes of being granted an injunction to play in 2026-2027. The NCAA Division I Board of Directors doubled down on their well-informed new eligibility model, ruling in a statement Thursday. The board has no plans to modify their application, notwithstanding a series of lawsuits recently filed on behalf of student athletes with no remaining eligibility, the board's statement reads.
Optimism, pessimism, as training camp nears. Welcome to our final Bills mailbag of the offseason. The 2026 season doesn't officially begin until September, but the start of training camp at St. John Fisher University on Wednesday is rightfully looked at as the unofficial start for many people. With that, let's get right to your questions. From Jay Skursky. Sam Ruggiero asks, I'm quite confident that, despite opinions to the contrary, our offense will do its part to keep us competitive in games this season. Do you feel our new 3-4 style defense under new defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard will be enough of an upgrade over Sean McDermott's inconsistent defense to help us get over the hump in the playoffs? What, in your opinion, are the upgraded strengths, and where should we be concerned about its weaknesses? From Jay, that's the million-dollar question, Sam. Will the Bills' new defense be good enough in the biggest moments? Unfortunately, the only way to get that answer is to see how it performs under pressure. I believe a change in philosophy for the defense can be a good thing. A fresh, perhaps more aggressive approach absolutely could lead to better results. I suspect the Bills will blitz more under Jim Leonhard than they did in the past, but be cautious of anyone who tells you definitively one way or the other that the defense will be better or worse. Until we see it in action, how could we make that declaration? I do think we should give the defense a bit of a grace period. It's a new scheme, and as such, there will be some growing pains. Let's see how the defense looks in November and December before we rush into any conclusions. As for the strengths, I'm optimistic about the secondary. The Bills have some playmakers in the defensive backfield. I think the addition of Bradley Chubb was good, but in terms of what he adds as an edge rusher and a run defender, and along with his leadership in the locker room, a healthy Ed Oliver also should be a big boost for the pass rush. There's a lot riding on that group up front, including Gregory Rousseau, being able to get after the opposing quarterback with greater consistency. Defensively, I'm concerned about the linebackers. Terrell Bernard is coming off a down year, and Dorian Williams is being trusted with a starting role for the first time in his career. If the run defense is going to improve, those two need to lead the way. Drew asks, what do you think about honoring O.J. Simpson in the new stadium by just placing a painting or a single combination of red and blue camouflage-colored glove on the wall without any name, number attached to it? Could this really act as a symbol in recognition of an on-field performance and accomplishment without officially or truly identifying the actual player involved? Would you think another option might be to paint both 32-yard line hash marks that are closest to the home side of the field in a red-blue combination color, signifying an acknowledgement to the career of a longtime Hall of Famer? Is acting like O.J. never existed as a Buffalo Bill really the most sensible idea for the solution to the issue? Based on the percentage of defensive snaps played last season, was Von Miller more statistically productive than A.J. Epsina? From Jay. One of the perks of owning an NFL team, if you want to call it that, is you get to do whatever you want when it comes to deciding how to honor great players from the franchise's past. Another perk is being a billionaire, but I digress. That's the situation here for Terry Pegula. If he doesn't want O.J. Simpson to be honored in any way at the new Highmark Stadium, he gets to make that call. I appreciate where you're going with the question, Drew, but I think doing either of those things would actually bring a lot more attention to the issue. It's simple for me. Either have Simpson be a part of the family circle area around the Buffalo statues where former players will be honored, or don't. We all know the reasons why the Bills would elect not to have Simpson. We're all free to agree or disagree with that decision. There's no right answer here. On one hand, if the Bills decided that they were going to honor Simpson and all former players based solely on what they did on the football field in Buffalo, that would be an understandable position to take. In Simpson's case, the Bills decided that what happened after his playing days cannot be ignored, and surely factored into the decision not to include him in the family circle area. This is where things get sticky because what happens is a player's personal life then becomes a part of the equation when weighing who to honor. What happens if a player is honored and then accused of a heinous crime later in his life? What crime rises to the level of not being honored? Those are questions the franchise will have to answer, and they're not easy. But honoring Simpson in some way, actually putting his name somewhere to me, would draw unwanted attention. As for Miller, he appeared in all 17 games last season for the Commanders, starting 3 times. He played 37% of the defensive snaps and finished with 9 sacks and 15 quarterback hits. Epenza played 47% of the Bills' defensive snaps last season and finished with 2.5 sacks and 9 quarterback hits. He had at least 6 sacks in each of his 3 previous seasons, so his drop in sack production was definitely disappointing. That's not the only measure of a defensive end's impact on a game, but Epenza wasn't viewed as a particularly strong run defender, which helps explain why he's now a former Bill. Miller was absolutely the more productive player. Of course, he's on his way to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so it's not exactly a surprise.
Thanks, Edwin. Our next sports story, Michael Antonius, local tennis prodigy, makes history after second tournament win of 2026. Article by Colin Ritchie. Buffalo's Michael Antonius, 16, set a record this month when he became the youngest American to win multiple World Tennis Tour men's singles titles, and he did it fewer than 100 miles from home. The first M25 tournament Antonius ever competed in was in Bakersfield, California in March. He won all 5 of his matches, becoming the youngest player to win a men's singles title on the global ITF World Tennis Tour since July 2014, and the youngest American to win an ITF men's single title since records began in 1990, according to the United States Tennis Association, USTA. The 6'3", 175-pound Antonius, who turned pro last year, realized early on he had a serious chance to win the tournament, explaining that his mindset was cautiously optimistic. As the tournament went on, I'm like, not to get ahead of myself, but I think I have a really good chance to win this, he said. There's a lot of good players here, but if I play my best, I can give everyone here a run for their money. By the time he reached the final round, Antonius had heard whispers of history being within his reach. Before the finals, I heard some things about that record, he said. I wasn't really sure what was accurate, he said, deciding instead to focus on the match he still needed to win for anything else to matter. Once the final ended, the emotions finally sank in for Antonius, and he learned of the historic benchmark that was attached to his victory. To be able to achieve something like that, it's really special for me, he said. 4 months later, Antonius was competing in the USTA Pro Circuit M15 at the Tennis Club of Rochester. Just as in Bakersfield, Antonius won all 5 of his matches. At 16 years and 199 days old, he became the youngest American to win 2 men's singles titles. Antonius wasn't sure if he would even have the time and energy to play in the Rochester tournament, freshly home from having competed in the Wimbledon Junior Championships in London for 3 weeks. Antonius had already won the J300 Roehampton, a warm-up tournament with nearly all the same competitors as the main draw for Wimbledon. Despite his first-place finish at Roehampton, Antonius was eliminated from Wimbledon in the first round. While the singles tournament didn't go his way, he still had the opportunity to play in a different part of the tournament. It was awesome to be over there, he said. For doubles, it allowed me to stay the whole week and just get the vibe of the grounds. That was really cool. Doubles meant his time with playing partner Andy Johnson. The pair reached the finals before ultimately falling 6-1, 6-4 to Luis Guto Miguel of Brazil and Zyga Zesko of Slovenia. Like Antonius, Johnson is 16, and the 2 Wonder Kids are good buddies who first met at the USTA National Campus Training Center in Orlando, Florida. Though he didn't collect a title in England, Antonius said he is grateful for the experience and understands it is just another step in what is one of the most promising tennis careers among young male American players.
And now let's go around the scoreboard. Friday's results from the American League: Detroit beat Kansas City 2-1, Tampa Bay won against Cleveland 11-3, and Boston versus Toronto was 6-4 for a Boston win. The Athletics shut out Minnesota 2-0, Houston won against the White Sox 9-5, and Texas beat Seattle 5-4. For the National League, Colorado beat Milwaukee 5-2, the Chicago Cubs won against Pittsburgh in 10 innings 3-2, Arizona won against Washington 3-2, and the Dodgers beat the Mets 4-2. San Diego won against Miami 4-2, and Cincinnati won against St. Louis 4-2. For the Interleague, the New York Yankees beat out the Philadelphia Phillies 1-0. Atlanta beat Baltimore 7-6 in 10 innings, and San Francisco won against the LA Angels 7-6, also in 10 innings. And now a look at Sunday's games. It'll be Cleveland at Tampa Bay at 12:15, Toronto at Boston at 1:35, Kansas City at Detroit at 1:40, the Athletics at Minnesota, and Houston at Chicago at 2:10 p.m., and Seattle at Texas at 2:35. For the National League, it'll be Arizona at Washington and the Cubs at Pittsburgh at 1:35, the Dodgers at New York Mets, and San Diego at Miami at 1:40, with Colorado at Milwaukee at 2:10 and Cincinnati at St. Louis at 12:15. For the Interleague, it'll be Atlanta at Baltimore at 1:35, the Angels at San Francisco at 4:05, and the Yankees at Philadelphia at 7:20 p.m. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Sunday, July 26th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call us 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Dan Arth
and Edwin Vieira. Thank you for listening.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.